morning, YouTube. Shaggy, I am Philolitea. Thank you for being here. For a member of the future audience, that's very cool of you to swing around and check out the beginning of this thing. I watched Weapons last night, and it is a beautiful, balmy day in Ohio. There are a few things that I need to talk about. We need to talk about synchronicity. We need to talk about oracle. We need to talk about intuition. We still need to talk about what the ego is and what ego death is. And I'm always here for you guys and your interests. So, long form on those subjects, where I sit and just think about those things uh, in front of the camera, where I do an old talking to myself format. Video, those are possible, but those are not what I'm making my money doing right now, if you understand what I'm saying. Good morning, Ghost Samurai. It's great to see you too. Let me say it's great to be seen by you, and it's great to see your username. Likewise, Invisible. You have to give me a second to conjure your name. I've got it in here somewhere. I'm not good with names. I never had to memorize names professionally before, because you just don't see the same people over and over very often. Beautiful Bella, thank you, Ghost Samurai, for the help with that. And I am doing great. I hope that you guys are doing great. I went and watched a movie last night, and I've got that on my mind. I've got all these different ways that I could use other people having seen that movie to communicate a lot of really interesting ideas. But I can also, without this one is not going to be as long before we head up to Panera. Um, this one is not going to be as long before I head up to Panera, because I don't have any water. I didn't get extra water yesterday. But I wanted to check in. We can walk over to Panera. I'll pause the thing while I get it set up, and I'll just leave it running, because I have plenty of battery to shoot from the porch. I gotta get hydrated, or I'm gonna hurt myself, cause damage to myself. You understand? That's what I mean. But yeah, I hope you guys are doing great, and I am making an effort to remember all of you, and to thank all of you by name who have sent me donations. Yesterday I got a little bit overwhelmed with that's right. Got a little bit overwhelmed with donations, and so I've forgotten where the 50 from my movie exactly came from. I know the person's name. I've memorized their real name, but I've forgotten exactly which username, and I am embarrassed about that. But I'm confessing it now, so you can be angry at me, and I can learn my lesson. I'm taking my lumps, as they say, if necessary. Hey, Greenie, we had a really good time last night. I felt like I had a really good time last night. So thank you for being here for that. That was cool. Some of those old games, I feel like the Final Fantasy series really lends itself to not necessarily quiet meditation, but most certainly meditation. It's a thoughtful game that doesn't require so much from you that you can't still. It was a nice convo. I don't know why I'm looking away from you guys this morning. I guess I've gotten comfortable with the idea that I live in a tent in the woods, and that might be okay. I've learned a lot about myself over the course of doing these. I was in the sports store, Dunlop or something like that, whatever it's called, Durham maybe, and I was looking at the pillows. I had a little bit of dosh. I still have like $80 that I'm trying to make sure that goes to food, right? Anyway, and I'm not trying to get myself to where I'm hungry again, so I'm not spending on nothing. And I don't know who Chad Zemek is, Z-Stan. And so I'm walking through the camping section of Durham Sports, thinking, well, what could I get for under 20 bucks that could just improve my situation right now. And so I was looking at their camp pillows. They have these self-inflating camp pillows that are going to be normal pillow size. And so they're going to annoy me that they're probably exactly as wide once they're all rolled out as the space that I sleep in. I'm glad to hear that you like Chad Zumick. He's got an unfortunate name, so I hope he's funny. Isolation leads to elevation, says Ghost Samurai. That was the goal. That was the goal. Um, on some level, it was to remove myself from other people's troubles, other people's worries, solving other people's problems, so that I could really see what I was doing so wrong that was making me have such unexpected and erratic outcomes with what is predictable for other people. And I'm looking at this pillow and I saw the $25 price tag, and my first thought was, nah, I don't need that. That's for somebody else. And then I walked away and I started, a tear rolled down my eye. And when that happens, it's because I've just stumbled upon a deep hurt that I've forgotten from my childhood. And I think that my parents used to tell me that other people who loved their kids would buy their kids and provide for their kids things that they didn't need but that were comfortable or convenient. And I got to thinking about it while I was on the bus to the mall the other day, that I might be infantilizing in a way I might be infantilizing in a way to guide my inner child to a safe afterlife, because that guy died a long, long time ago. And so when we talk about ego death and those things, I tend to try to guide the conversation toward being over, because we don't know what we're talking about. I am a person who, when I walked into my therapist and I told her, I have been suffering cyclical ego deaths for about 20 years. They've gotten rapidly out of control, where I'll rapidly cycle egos. I know that it's happening. They'll die. I'll come back a new person with what I know are memory blocks from just a few hours ago. I know I can't access memories, skills, thoughts, words from just a few hours ago. This has got to stop. And so when we talk about ego death, I tend to try to guide the conversation away from it, because when you tell that to normal people, they don't know what the hell what that is. They don't know how to deal with that, and they think they're supposed to be concerned for you, or that they're supposed to intervene in some way. And so this tent was about getting myself away from triggers that could cause ego deaths, and then engaging in those triggers one at a time, knowing that I was going to do it, so that I could gauge my responses to them, so I could figure out what the fuck I'm doing so wrong. And so I don't have a moral for that. I'm a Shaggy Dog storyteller. There's no ending. There's no traditional moral. I just realized I was doing those things. And then I sat and watched a very challenging, difficult movie that was accidentally a mystery. Um, and I don't want to go any more than that. In the vein of how I write mystery. Hey, Alex, what's up? I may have accidentally called you Alex. I was thanking you in the short last night, because I try to say both of your names at the same time, like that's your whole name, like your full first name is Alec Smith. I try to grind all of that together, and I do apologize for misnaming you. I'm doing great, Bella. I'm doing great. I had a great night. Well, see, Ghost Samurai. Ghost Samurai suggests that maybe it's everyone else doing wrong against you. Because of my childhood abuse, I grew up prone to being gaslighted, and it wasn't everyone, it wasn't the world, but it was my immediate circles, my work environment, my love environment, and my community, my friends were all gaslighting me into believing that I was the one that was wrong about everything. Good morning, Christian, Olivier, and Nuestra. Bonjour, Monsieur Olivier. And estoy bien, nuestra y tú. Um, maybe it was. Maybe it was everyone that I knew was doing me wrong, Ghost Samurai, because I didn't get these. I didn't get hellos when I walked into rooms. I didn't get good mornings, how are you, what are you feeling, what are you thinking about, what did you do since I've seen you. I didn't get that kind of engagement in my life before I started doing these lives, about like a week ago, like 10 days ago. So Whether it was something, I acknowledge that there was a lot that I was doing wrong because I got combative. I got combative to be performative when I became homeless. And a lot of that was about projecting, all right, it's time to defend myself if I've spent 30 years, 38 years approaching at that time in gaslighting and letting myself be manipulated and mistreated in an effort to feel like I fit in. So let's be combative and let's say, okay, well, I'm not going to fit in. So dilate. I'm also glad to see you, Nostra Familia. I don't know if you check out the Final Fantasy Let's Plays, but I went ahead and named one of my characters after you because of your generosity with Yonder Sandwich the other day. So I hope that doesn't embarrass you. But you're my healer. It felt appropriate. And all of you, that's available for all of you. Final Fantasy just only right now they only give me 4 names, and so I've taken my name out of the game. I did it in Final Fantasy 2 for drama reasons, so watch that Let's Play. I'm not going to spoil it. A demon like yourself, Ghost Samurai. I'm a dork in a divine way. That is exactly right. I don't describe myself that way because when you describe yourself too accurately, people tell you that you're pretending or you're pretense, right? You're pretentious. But that is exactly how I think of myself. A dork in a divine way. That's right. They will get theirs. They have all gotten theirs. It doesn't take long when you if I interpret my life in such a way that I've come to believe that I'm a divine dork, and that there are gods, there are energies that flow around me like Taveran in the Wheel of Time. If I believe that, and if I interpret my life in such a way that I come to believe that, and then I look back on my life, those people got theirs almost immediately after. Almost immediately after I exited from their lives. Their lives fell to shit. There's a second way to interpret that. And the second way to interpret that is the reason their lives fell to shit is because I was all of the structure holding them up. I was their atlas. And when I finally said, I've had enough of you, there was nothing holding any of their pretense up. And so their lives just collapsed around them, and they didn't have the skill set to build anything up because I was the one who built everything up for them. I heard a corporate type, a corporate coach type, which I'm not, but I can do corporate coaching. I'm trained. I do take comfort in it. Ghost Samurai, both words. I tend to that happens anyway. Ghost Samurai, I do take comfort in it. When I sleep in this tent and I say I'm not sleeping for shit, it's because I want to wake up and I want to get involved in the problems in your life, in such a way that I'm not building anything. Um, That's why I'm in this tent. That's why I'm in a structure that I built. I didn't fabricate the materials, but I did assemble, right? If Ford gets to take credit for assembling their machines in America, I get to take credit for building this tent. You see what I'm saying? And I do take comfort in it. Twice people have come across my tent and harmed it, Greenie. Um, Last around Halloween, the week of Halloween last year, I am assuming it was kids because I would prefer to think it wasn't the cops. Threw a bunch of rocks through my tarp so that it had a gaping hole, and I got to spend winter with that. I patched it up the best I could with duct tape, and I tarpaulined the fuck out of it. So it was great. It was fine. It worked. It only became a problem in the winter because they cut through this part. They cut through the netting on the inside. So it only became a problem in the spring with the spiders. And then my guy Kyle, I don't know if he wants me to say his last name, but my guy Kyle, who's also homaged in the Final Fantasy 3, because he's never showed up in my comments yet, but he shows up in my Cash App. And I'm not going to say those are my favorite kind of people, but in that time in my life, that was my favorite kind of people, because the people who were showing up in my comments in that time of my life were all telling me to get a job. And so the only thing he's ever said to me is, I hope this helps. And every single time it has been the exact $10 that I have needed to get through that day, with my head up in the way that people say, without my back bent by the weight of, oh my God. Anyway, and so I concocted a peppermint oil. He is a blessing. Yeah, when I see his notification, I read God's voice. I see that somebody has been impressed by God to work in my life. And so that's why there's a Kyle in every Final Fantasy game that I'm playing, all of my Final Fantasy series. There's a Kyle in every party, because you never know when that guy's going to show up and be the guy who saves the day. Now, he's also the guy who doesn't finish boss fights because the boss one-shots him, but that's not my fault. Kyle needs to do his push-ups. Anyway, I don't remember what I was saying. Oh, um, around May, 8 weeks ago, I don't remember, the spine finally broke, and so I replaced it. And then a few weeks ago, whenever that was, uh, I'm assuming again that it was a child and not a cop, tried to throw a rock through my tarp through the outside, and they did pierce a hole in it, but they didn't try hard enough. They didn't try hard enough to. Uh, Hello, baby girl Bolo. They didn't try hard enough to succeed to cause permanent damage or for me to even patch it up. That is a good movie, Me, Myself, and Irene. And yes, people have frequently thought I look like Jim Carrey, so I'll just move on from that. Because I don't know any good quotes from that movie. Actually, I do know a good quote from that movie, but it's probably inappropriate to say in public. It's the price check on Vagiclean. Looks like smells like somebody's got a bun in the oven. Smells like sourdough. Funny shit. I used to work at a gas station, and then I worked at a Dollar Tree for a minute. Not a Dollar Tree, a Family Dollar. And every time somebody would come through with medicated, personal medication, whatever, medicated cream, I always used to think of that. I never said it, but I always thought of it. And so, yeah, I made a little short this morning talking about it, but I'm in a really good place. And then the only other times that people have come back here have been cops. Cops just trying to harsh my vibe. But I have permission to be back here, and so they leave me alone. They mean mug me and follow me around parking lots, but whatever. I've actually raised my voice and shouted at enough of the cops in this town that they know better than to fuck with me. I know my rights. They have no reason to ever speak to me, let alone ask me questions about what I'm doing with my time. I haven't done anything wrong. Yeah, I have permission to be here. I got permission to be here from I didn't get permission to be here. What happened is the cops moved me off from behind the academy where my little buddy Tiny Toes disappeared. And so I came down here. I followed a deer path up through that hill over yonder and then back down over here across the creek. And I found this spot because this is where the deer family used to bed down. And so I set up my tent, and then a few days later, I forgot, and it was actually it was almost exactly a week later, maybe let's say 8 days later, I went into the Coles, and I told the manager on duty that I was back here, and she told me that she genuinely didn't care. And then a few days later, a cop came down and wanted to harsh my vibe and tell me that the owner told me I had to leave. And I said, well, that doesn't sound right, because the manager told me that they didn't care that I was back here. And then he goes up and tried to get them to kick me off the land, and the owner called in because the manager on duty called the owner because he was giving the general manager a bunch of bullshit. So the manager on duty called the owner. The owner called in and told him to fuck off, that I had permission to be here. GBI in Georgia. He cried begging you for help. I believe it. And hello, is it Rizaka? Yeah. Well, I was told by multiple people, that the owner of this Coles is involved in philanthropy here in town, that it's a big part of his personal identity. And so I just had a feeling that if I was on the up and up, I stayed clean, I kept my area clean, I kept my tent clean and tidy, as in I didn't let it obviously mildew on the outside. I didn't leave my clothes lying around everywhere. I didn't leave trash, etc. You understand that he would that nobody in their right mind would mind me being back here, because I don't spend my days back here. But Academy didn't want me back here because I live streamed I did a space during a football game while they were closing, and those people are small-minded and fat enough to not like it that a person is enjoying his time while they're doing what they think is hard work. I used to be able to close literally with my eyes closed. I could close that store with a thumb up my ass. Yeah, many aren't, because most people aren't respectful of the land. They're not respectful of their person. And take care of yourself, Greenie. Yeah, well, people that are willing to compromise themselves usually aren't doing well later, goes Samurai. That's what I was kind of talking about with the people who have wronged me in the past. They compromised themselves by thinking that wronging me would manage their lives. Rod Todd, if I had a foreskin, you would be embarrassed. You're already ashamed of what you're hanging. You would be so embarrassed you would remove yourself. If the growth of my infantile penis had not been stunted by that doctor's mishandling of that equipment, you would be too embarrassed to ever show your phallus to anyone. Remove yourself, or I will. Good morning, Vicky. Good morning, Vicky. Thank you for expressing interest in my having seen and being interested in talking about and probably eventually spoiling the fuck out of weapons. It was incredible. Yes, they didn't just hit the foreskin. They cut into the fibrous wall. Job interview in 45 minutes. What? Remember, Vicky, look good, play good, or look good, feel good, right? Look good, feel good, play good, get paid good, live good, give back good. You got this. You're gonna crush it. Put your hair in that way that you wear it that makes you feel powerful. I don't know what your gig is, but hiring managers love women with a wedgie and panty lines. They eat that shit up. I was never a hiring manager, but I knew a lot of them. Instant gratification, goes Samurai, is that's the one. That's what gets us. Instant gratification is the curse that gets us. Ugh. Banning things only makes them go underground, and then you have real damage being done. I'll be rooting for you. I'll be waiting to hear. I'll be around, Miss Vicky. Go crush it. All right, Ghost. Let's calm down a little bit. Calm down a little bit. It's very violent. You're getting away with it, but you are going to cross the community guidelines and get us both in trouble. Let's calm down just a touch. Have it in the banana clip. Looking professional, feeling great. Thick 44 used to say, looking good, feeling great. Go be a human man warrior. R.I.P. Thick. R.I.P. Anthony Schnur. He is one of my personal heroes. He beat brain cancer twice, and we lost him to shingles. I'm not asking you to be tame, Ghost Samurai. I'm not asking you to be anyone other than yourself. I'm just asking you to keep it within the community guidelines so I don't look like I'm encouraging you, and so people that I don't know don't try to join in. That's all I'm saying, big guy. A genuine tourist? Oh, yes. Right. That's not the word you wrote. That's interesting, Dylan, and I believe it because we've come to the point where we tolerate intolerance. My morning is amazing, Dylan. Thank you for asking. We've come to a point where we tolerate intolerance. There was a Dice documentary about this circa 2012 asking, do the Scandinavian countries tolerate intolerance to the degree that they put themselves at danger? Yeah, yeah, I believe it. I'm not going to say those things out loud. You understand that I can't read this, future audience. I can't read the things we're talking about because, again, we're brushing right up on the community guidelines. Because I've noticed the same thing that Dylan is talking about, that brushing the community guidelines, gently rubbing oneself and caressing oneself sensuously against the community guidelines is where the money is made. And so I'm trying my best to respect them as not a stripper pole. Whether he sound, yeah, this is an interesting conversation to bring to Ghost's attention, and I'm glad to participate in it as an observer, but I can't read. I can't read it, you understand? Yeah, that right there, Dylan. Are you old enough to remember 2001, Dylan? I can't remember. I'm sure that you've told me your age because I'm honest about my being 38, and I try to frame. No, Sweeta, I'm homeless. I'm a monastic, religious, and ascetic. I'm also out of water. This one, you were not old enough, but you're old enough to remember the fallout. You're old enough to remember the next 4 years. The next 4 years shaped who you would be as an adult, and that's what I was talking about. Actually, was the next 4 years. Do you remember the kids who were able to access the beheading videos coming out of Iraq and Iran, in the through the middle school firewalls? Do you remember that, Dylan? You're 6 years younger than I am, so you might not have been quite in. Okay, you remember it. That's that's what's happening. Do you understand what I'm saying? When I talk about, yeah, access it through the elementary school firewalls, exactly. So when I talk about using the community guidelines as a stripper pole to dance around, um, it's the kids, all of the kids who are able and inclined to access those firewalls, and every school on the planet is now going live on YouTube because there's money to be made doing that. They were making money in grade school doing it. Hey, thank you, Melanie, for saying that I'm funny and relatable. Sometimes I say things that people find hurtful. I think we were talking today because I think that you thought that I was calling fat people a bad people. No, I was just saying that some people are overweight because they feel sorry for themselves, but nothing has actually gone wrong. I'm trying not necessarily to be relatable, but I am trying to share my intelligence in a way that can at least be deflected as he's not talking about me. Let's laugh at it. Wow, Ghost Samurai, that's intense. So you're old enough to have been an adult. We were we I was in I had just walked into my second period class. No, I had just walked into my first period class from homeschool in freshman high school in a new high school, and my first period class was social studies. So I walk in and we had the TV that was on CNN. I walk in to see what's up with CNN right as the first plane hit. I watched the first plane hit live the moment I walked through that door, and I thought it was a movie. I thought it was fake. AI censorship on YouTube. I don't know what's going on with that because I'm trying not to, because I have opinions about AI and the way that it should be used and could be used. Born in 2002, Olivier. Heard that. I thought it was, so when people now talk about AI deepfakes, I thought that I had walked in on an AI deepfake in 2001. I'm not pretty enough to be a serial killer. I don't maintain my appearance with enough diligence. Yeah, we didn't change channel. We all, literally, many of us just stood there in silence for the whole social studies period. And then we had to go about our day because that bell rang. We just stood and watched CNN for that whole social studies period for weeks. We didn't do anything else in her class. She was also pregnant. Wow. Okay, I will tell you a joke, V, the Hitman V, but only because people have sent me money all week. Good morning, Easy Funshine. And someone S asks a relevant question. So I'm going to tell this story because I've made money this week, not because V, the Hitman V, has tipped me and then said, hey, I just tipped you, tell me a story, which is the proper way to engage with a Shaggy Dog storyteller. I'm going to tell you this joke, V, the Hitman V, only so I can criticize you and chastise you and let the future audience and those 10 other people that I know are watching know the proper format for interrupting to get a story. Okay, a traveling salesman goes up to a house. He's a professional. He's selling vacuums. He goes up to this house. He knocks on the door. A little boy answers the door. That little boy is dressed from head to toe in a black lace bra and panties and black high heel shoes. That little boy is about 9 years old. Those high heel shoes, his feet sink all the way down into the toes in those high heeled shoes. And this man has no idea how he's got himself tied into these bra and panties. This is an adult woman's clothing that this little boy is wearing. But the man is a professional, so he doesn't react immediately. And then he notices that the little boy has a lit Cuban cigar in one hand and a tumbler of some sort of brown alcohol filled all the way to the rim with 2 icicles floating in it, and the little boy sips that glass. Yeah? The man is a professional, so he takes a moment and he assesses the situation. He's here to sell vacuums. He doesn't know what's going on in this situation, but he asks the little boy, are your parents home? And that little boy takes a drag and blows a smoke ring in that salesman's face and says, the fuck do you think? Okay, so someone else says, what comes under the guise of intolerance? It includes speech and ideas. Well, what is tolerance and then what is intolerance? What is tolerable to me is not tolerable to you. Your alcohol tolerance is probably higher than my alcohol tolerance. Your weed tolerance is probably significantly lower than my weed tolerance. So your tolerance for speech that you don't want to hear or don't like to hear or that you find hateful to you might be of a lower degree than my tolerance for speech of same. Same for ideas. So what comes under the guise of intolerance? Everything. What do you tolerate? How much like your father are you? What's up? Yes, what about it? I haven't reacted to anybody else like that. And it's not because of them. It's because you gave me a bunch of Z's in your was up, so I read it. Dylan, a tolerant society cannot tolerate intolerance. And that's the paradox. There comes a point where the intolerance just conquers because it's better politics. Why do you think Trump? Why do you think Biden? Why do you think Trump won? My day's going great, Banna. The fuck are you talking about, Seth? Welcome back, Bella. Welcome back, Jib. You changed your profile picture, or I couldn't see it yesterday. No, Banna, I'm not camping. You're allowed to donate for any reason you like. Banna, my links, welcome back, Mel. My links are in my profile and on the description of this video, but I'm not camping. I am a homeless slash, I'm an unhomed, or unhoused, because this is my home, religious, ascetic, monastic. And then Dylan says, bigots can't tolerate people who are different from them. And you don't have to be a bigot to be unable to tolerate people who are different from you. All you have to be is emotionally or socially immature or inexperienced. There's no reason for you to be, sorry, Banna VR. I can't tolerate unpeeled garlic in my dish. Exactly, says Olivier. I have met Bella. Bella was in the chat moments ago. You're not doing the whole Miss Doubtfire thing on me, Mel, are you? I mean, I don't mind if you are. I'll play along like you are the whole time. Banna, if you want to help me get a home, my Patreon is also linked. You're going to have to be in for the long haul if you don't click on that $1,000 a month button. But I've looked at what the prostitutes are charging for their Patreon, and I'm cheap. I'll even show you my dick if you give me $100 a month or more, and you ask nicely. Morning, doorway sniffer. I feel like I haven't seen you in a few days. But Banda, if you want to help me get a home, I need $1,000 a month sustainable income. That's going to come through my Patreon. If you just want to help me get a meal today, $1, $1.25. B, what I look for in a man, I like a petite man who's under 150 pounds, who's packing about 9.5 inches. I like him to look like a preteen girl. Thank you for telling me that, World Wild Strange. Olivier Chevalier laughs at my completely inappropriate joke. Banna, if you donate me $5,000 and you do that, I'm not going to immediately get a home with it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pay down my CashApp. I'm going to pay down what I owe on my CashApp, which is $250. And then I'm going to get a night at a hotel. Not even a night. I'm going to go and rent a hotel. I'm going to take a shower. And then I'm going to come out of that hotel and I'm going to come right back to my tent. And I'm going to live on that $5K until I have a sustainable $1,000 a month. What I would do with it is I would buy a laptop and a Switch and another battery bank. And then my life would become about just streaming content as many ways as I possibly can for as long as I possibly can. The one just called me a stray, and yeah, or that I'm looking for strays to feed me, and sort of. Someone earlier today called me a divine dork, and I'm just trying to find my people. Right. Well, Banna, don't pledge money that you don't have, buddy. Did you not see what happened with that dumb bitch that was married to that fucking idiot that played Edward Scissorhands when she pledged all those millions to the Jewish cause and then never gave it? I'm not inclined to like you if you promise me money that you don't have on hand or ever give. Just like, subscribe, yeah, you're 9 years old, and probably move on. You're probably a lot too young to be watching my content. Hello, 5,000 Butterflies X2. Thank you for the subscription. It's nice to have made your acquaintance and to be seen by you. It just got really hot in here. All of a sudden, the temperature just raised in here by about 5 degrees. So I got to get out of here because I don't have any water. You're too young to be on the internet unsupervised. You are why people watch beheading videos, Banna. You get desensitized because you shouldn't be seeing any of the things you're seeing. This is why your parents put a fucking tent on the window so you can't see me as you're driving around town. This is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about brushing our nipples gently against the community guidelines. 9-year-olds want to be titillated. There is a reason that adults are able to prey on them with their genitals. And it's not because the children are innocent victims. It's because the children want to be in danger. Because children need simulated danger in order to be prepared for the coming danger. I had a friend ask me last night. I said, well, you need to be prepared. You need to be prepared for the coming violence. And he goes, well, how can I be prepared for coming violence that I don't know how to expect? And I said, well, you were in the military. How do you prepare for a live combat zone when you're not allowed to shoot at soldiers? How would you prepare in for a live combat zone? Maybe somebody would come up with the idea of shooting guns over the heads of guys and a keep your fucking head down drill. Maybe that kind of drill would prepare you for the simulation of bullets whizzing over your head and how the necessity and importance of keeping your fucking head down. And he goes, okay, yeah, I can see how you can be prepared for violence that you don't expect. You prepare for the unexpected. So you prepare for everything that you can be prepared for, and then you're ready for the unexpected. Children need this. Do you understand that before the 20th century across the world, children were raised in extremely dangerous environments? The majority of children, when people talk about life expectancy being low, it has absolutely nothing to do with war. It has absolutely nothing to do with famine. It has absolutely nothing to do with dying in adulthood. It has everything to do with children being unsupervised and finding simulated danger that turned out to kill or maim them. Then plagues started happening. Then adults started dying in droves. But military conquest wasn't actually lethal. That's a myth. Once we started digging up the graves from the times, and we started actually looking at the records of what was going on, it's not so much that combat was lethal. Combat was mutilating. That's why the economies were so slow. Combat was mutilating. Men couldn't leave combat after iron weapons. Men couldn't leave combat. They couldn't expect to serve in combat multiple times and not sustain prolonged injuries. This is why the Romans, especially after Gaius Marius, after the Marius reformations, this is why they relied on soldiers instead of, they relied on professional soldiers instead of landed gentry that were bought into the military as suppliers. They transitioned and relied on professional soldiers because they paid the soldiers in food, and they paid the soldiers in land, and they paid them in a pension, and that pension allowed them to support a wife and child, wives and child if they were smart. And so the bet then becomes like insurance today. It becomes like health insurance with your employer today. It becomes, I won't get injured, and I will serve my entire commission with the military, and then when I come out the other side of my commission, I will be young and athletic and healthy enough to enjoy life as a father with a young woman who's enjoying being plowed, if you understand what I'm saying. And so children grew up they didn't just grow up in an environment where invading armies could come and kill children. They grew up in an environment, this is true into the 1980s, this is true into the 1990s, this is why stranger danger was such a big deal when I was a kid. It wasn't just that they would kidnap you, they would hump you a few times and then they would let you go. Is that they would kill you. Killing children was a pastime of many adults for thousands of years. Because an unsupervised child historically is an unloved child. I was an unloved child. My parents told me that I was an unloved child, but I was that latchkey kid. I was that latchkey kid who walked home without a group of friends. So I walked home with God a lot of times. And so when I talk about the being passionate about children, where the fuck are your parents? 9-year-old, where the fuck are your parents? Why the fuck are you even able to see my face unsupervised? Where the fuck are your parents? I'm asking because if you're not watching me, you're watching someone who's doing damage to you and knows they're doing damage to you and is trying to do damage to you because they can get away with it, because they weren't able to do that damage to the children that they grew up among. Children also used to make sure that child didn't survive childhood. The reason the serial killer thing became a thing is because bullies stopped killing that kid. I'm not joking. This is all documented history. It's all anthropology. You can find it in any fantasy movie series. That's why the Game of Thrones falls so flat at the end. Oh, the bullied kid wins. Well, the bullies never would have actually existed. They would have never been allowed to survive. The Lannisters would have been assassinated on the battlefield a long time before their incest was able to take fruit on the throne. In history, that's why you've never heard that story in history is because people like them were assassinated. They had mysterious and sudden deaths in youth. It happened all the time. All the time. Especially to nobility. But people like Tyrion, it's Tyrion, right? Tyrion's the little person. Which one is the beautiful blonde? I haven't watched it. I see the memes, and I know people are obsessed with it. And I know that there are a few of you here in the chat that like it. That guy would have been, he would have never become a war hero because of his particular perversions and because of his callous sadism. Soldiers didn't fight for sadists. Do you know why soldiers didn't fight for sadists? Because after the fall of Rome, soldiers maintained that professionalism, but it became contract work. So the war band leader was contracted to a king or to a noble to land, and that war band leader was paid. They were paid in a contract amount of money, and then that contract amount of money was divvied out among the soldiers, and then the soldiers got to keep and retire on, or at least live on between battles, what they were able to steal from the battlefield. So sieges, the reason that the attacking army, you never hear, and maybe you have the question, why did the attacking army at these sieges that last months and years, why did they never face what's that called? Desertion. I just spilled tuna water all over the netting of my tent like a dumbass. Anyway, why did they never face desertion? Well, the reason they never faced desertion is because they were being paid, and they could anticipate that anything that they could find in the city, once they finally got inside there, whether that be women, whether that be jewels, whether that be whatever, anything they could find in the city and that they could carry off on their person away from the city, now belonged to them, and that was shit they didn't have before the war. That's how wars were fought forever. The Roman civilized war, the Roman civilized war in their particular way, the Persians and the Babylonians also civilized war in their particular way. War was significantly different in the Bronze Age and before the Iron Age. Like I'm saying, iron weapons made lethality possible. I know a bunch of you are cycling through this because you're not really sure how this connects back to supervising your children. Most fathers were either dead or maimed. Their children were raised wild in packs. So a children that doesn't have a pack is a vulnerable child. Is a child that's going to be killed, taken advantage of, injured, hurt, maimed, ruined, in other words. And so you might be thinking to yourself, why is it your place to chastise someone else's child? It's my place to chastise someone else's child because it's my channel. You should not be here. I remember being in a grocery store in the 90s with my little brother. I was in 7th grade. So he would have been in 3rd grade. And he was just being a shit. He was taking the opportunity to do all the things that he knew he wasn't allowed to do in public, in the line. So he's knocking candy bars down everywhere. He's screaming and yelling. And I'm trying to lose my cool because I'm in 7th grade. And we're in a different world now. We're in a different amount of opulence. You know, we're in a higher class. My dad's got a good job. I'm trying really hard not to embarrass my family by being fucking white trash. And my brother is just being the white trashiest white trash little kid ever born. And this old man is standing behind us, and he finally just snaps, and he grabs my brother by the waistband, hoists him up off the ground, and slaps him on the ass about 5 times, and sets him down and goes, "Now act right. You know better than this." And he did. And so that's an experience you can't unhave. And it wasn't traumatic. It was heroic. Thank God. Thank fuck somebody came and dealt with this child. And so when you think about evil stepfathers, is something that we don't talk about. But if you watch true crime. The evil isn't the stepfather. The evil is the mother. We can't quite cross that bridge yet to blaming the mother. Oh, but she was a single mother and she just needed help. Well, what she needed help with was managing children who refused to be managed because they knew they could get away with it, because they knew their mother wouldn't kill them. That wasn't true in the ancient world. That wasn't even true as recently as 1990. You've seen I'm sure you've seen Shutter Island, man. Women used to fucking kill all their kids and start over with new men anytime a husband cheated or ran around or disobeyed them, or not disobeyed, disappointed them. If you divorced a woman, it was a non-zero chance that she'd kill all your offspring. That was the fucking threat of the relationship. The man wants the offspring. A woman can always make more. In her mind. And when life expectancy is 38, her mind ain't wrong. If you're expecting to die by 35, you're 25, you've already 9 years of children. What's another one? Supervise your fucking kids. I'm talking about seeing grotesque acts of violence, grotesque calls to violence on YouTube. Because parents aren't fucking supervising their kids. If his mom knew he was doing that and then beat his fucking ass, and then had her third husband threaten him with a knife, do it again, and I'll fucking cut him off. That wouldn't happen ever again. You'd never see it across the whole world. But women have pulled this, we're a victim. We're a victim of childbirth. It happens to us. We're a victim of this child needing discipline. That was my mother. I'm thinking about this because of the plot of Weapons, by the way. 17 children from one classroom suddenly go missing. What a fucking plot. All one night at 2:17 a.m., 17 children go missing. All from the same classroom. Only the boy and the teacher are only one boy and the teacher are in the classroom the next day. And so a lot of people, I talked to a girl at Dollar Tree and I asked her if she'd heard of it, and she thought it was about a school shooting. She thought it was about violence done to children in a classroom setting. And I said, oh, absolutely, it's not about that. Not about that at all. It's more like a modern Pied Piper of Hamelin situation. That was my first thought, is I hope this is like the Pied Piper of Hamelin, but modern. And it was so much better than that. But like, those kids were left unsupervised. Everybody just assumed that they were going to do and be what they were supposed to do, be where they were supposed to be, and do what they were supposed to do. And so you start to think, okay, let's abstract this out from the real, and let's not think about what the lived experience of the child would be like if we were trying to solve this problem. Okay? So we know, let's say that we know, right? Because let's say that we live in a modern fairy tale and a witch has told us that she's going to steal our child from us. That the child is going to willingly come to her, right? And so we know it's going to happen, and we know it's going to happen at this time and at this date, right? Let's say that we're in a fairy tale, because that's the plot of fairy tales. You understand that I'm drawing from the plots of fairy tales to give you this hypothetical. So in fairy tales, witches will do that. Witches and other supernatural people, entities, persons. They'll say, okay, so we've just made a deal, and as per the contract of that deal, this thing will happen. And then what happens in the stories is that the people that are subject to that deal, that have agreed to a contract, right? So think in terms of the witch. The witch's contract with Satan. Okay, in the pre-Christian folklore, the witch would enter into a contract, a verbal agreement, a contract with normal people, usually important, powerful people, kings, queens, etc. But sometimes ordinary people, because they sold their magic for effects. They were healers, they were wise people. They were doing things not dissimilar to what I'm doing, okay? And so, like the whole yelling at that guy for not giving me the money for a sandwich. What would happen is if you would go to a witch and you would ask her for help, but you wouldn't have anything to offer her in return, is she would curse you. And so she'd do the thing that you asked her to do, but it would have a negative long-term impact on your life. You understand what I'm saying? Okay, so you know the rules. You know that if you don't give the witch your child, or let your child go to them on the appointed day, right, of their own free will, you know that you're going to be cursed. But you didn't realize on the day of the child's birth, when you made this contract, that you were going to grow attached to and fond of the child. So the child's 9 years old, and they go, you know that but on their 9th birthday or whatever, they're going to walk out the door. So how do we solve this problem? How do we keep the child from walking off? Well, we can convince the child not to walk off, and then we can learn we can tell the child, educate the child, teach the child about not walking off and the importance of family and the importance of commitment and the evils of black magic, and we can strengthen their minds, or we can gaslight their minds against the witch, so that when the time comes, the child makes the free will decision not to follow through on the contract. Well, we aren't negating the contract. The child has negated the contract with the child's free will. And then we play that story out. We play that narrative out. And then what happens is that it turns out that the child will be hypnotized and go anyway. And so we go, okay, well, let's scroll back in time now that we know that, and let's do this a second time. Let's play the new game plus with that knowledge. How do we prevent it? And then you can see how you arrive at Rapunzel. Do you know the Rapunzel story? Girl in the tower, promised to a witch. This is a setup that happens over and over and over and over in European folklore. And I might take this opportunity to shave. If you guys want to jump in on me. Uh-oh. The butt of my trimmer had fallen off into my bag. And then so in the modern world, we have this idea that the child is responsible for what happens, because the child is unsupervised, because the parents have already made the decision that will impact the child's destiny and fate. The child has to cope now and move on with the destiny and the fate. They have to now be their own person within the confines of what has been provided for them. This is how we think of it now. Because that's true. But we give too much pathos to the parent who does well, I tried my best to keep them safe, when what they did was not that. Because my dad used to try that. Well, all I ever wanted was to keep you safe. And it's like, right, but you weren't a safe place. Ouch. You weren't someone that I could go to, right? But the witch listens to me. And then you switch the witch to the drug or the sweet food. Oof. Or the act of sex. Or shopping. Or making money. Alcohol. Weed. And now we're talking about binding. Religion. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. If we're talking about binding ourselves into a relationship of mutual dependence, we're talking about religion. And if we're talking about a religion of mutual dependence, we're talking about a codependent, gaslighting relationship. Where the God that you worship will say things to you like, well, I am what I am. Well, what are you? What I am. Okay, but I can't observe or interact with you, so what are you? What I am. Okay, but what is that? You find a God who will only speak to you in mystery and riddle, won't speak clearly to you. And icons, images, words, people, places, concepts that you can interpret and understand. And if you can't interpret and understand them, is it communication? Is the God even trying? And if the God's not trying, but you're religious and you're bound to it and you have a mutually dependent relationship on it, and it's not giving you what you depend on from it, you understand that you're in a classic abusive relationship. And so if you're in an abusive relationship with the God that you choose, how do you get out? Get out. What's the battered religious shelter? What's that? Well, you know it's Jehovah's Witness, and then if it's not Jehovah's Witness, it's Methodist, and if it's not Methodist, then it's Episcopalian, and if it's not Episcopalian, then it's Lutheran, and if it's not Lutheran, then it's Catholicism, and if it's not Catholicism, Catholicism just isn't quite magical and hurtful enough of the user, we have to go fundamentalist. Have to go all the way to an imagined beginning. An invented and erroneous beginning. And now I'm talking about that book I was reading, but was reading for the channel the other night, listening to and yelling at for the channel the other night is what I was actually doing. Biblical critical theory is the title of the book. So that's what happens. That's what happens when things that shouldn't be happening on my channel happen. I start talking. So thanks for subjecting yourself to me rambling about protect your fucking kids. And ignorance ain't protecting them. That's what I'm building to. This whole ignorance is innocence argument. Children don't need to be innocent. Children only need to be innocent if you anticipate they're going to die before 13. We haven't anticipated that our children are going to die before 13 since at least 1970. We haven't anticipated it. We said to ourselves, that shit's frontier stuff. We should have better medicine by now. It's 1970. We should have lower mortality rates than the ancient world. We didn't, by the way. If you were born before 1970 in the 20th century, you're a miracle baby. You never should have made it. Your doctor was so drunk and so incompetent that you never should have made it. That's why doulas and home births became a thing in the 80s and 90s, is because doctors are so routinely incompetent and deadly that something as routine as prenatal care will kill the mother because the doctor has a penis. That happens. Still happens all the time. Our mortality rate spiked again around COVID because our doctors are incompetent. Our medical doctors are utterly incompetent. I used to work in a gas station, and I asked not to work mornings. I had to request not to work mornings after a while. I cannot work this shift. And my boss is like, why? Every adult person wants to work mornings. The night shift is for the young people. Young people like to be up late at night. And I'm like, well, whether I like to be up late at night or not, whether I have the temperament of a young person or not, is irrelevant. I can't keep selling alcohol to surgeons on their way to work. I can't do this because I can't refuse this sale. You're going to get all bent out of shape and I'm going to lose my job over it. But ethically, I cannot keep selling alcohol to surgeons on their way to work, knowing that it's me. If they hurt somebody, the state's coming and finding me for over-serving somebody that I knew was A, driving, and B, a surgeon. Get me the fuck off this shift. It was a joke to all of them. They all thought it was hilarious. Don't get surgery in Columbus. I'm not joking. I am not joking. I don't remember the name of that hospital chain. There's a medical chain. It might be Gemini in Columbus that's just every single person that works for it, from my perspective, is a fucking drunk and dangerous. I went to them when I tore my pelvis on my bicycle, and she told me that I had Hep C. No, I don't have Hep C. I have a severely torn pelvis. No, you have Hep C. Bitch. Do I look green to you? But she was Indian. She was of Indian descent. She had the red dot. She was born rich, grew up rich. She was only a doctor because her parents gave her the ultimatum that you either get to be a doctor or you get to spit out babies for some rich guy for the rest of your life. Which one do you want? Hypergamy or hyper-economy? She chose hyper-economy, and she's fucking not temperamentally suited to be a doctoress. Anyway, she refused to help me, and so now, 7 years later, guts hanging out from between my legs. Ranting about how parents need to protect their children from content like mine. They need to be involved in their children's lives from content like mine so they don't get it in their heads to talk to adults and that they can talk to adults. A 9-year-old should not be talking with an adult. That's a thought crime waiting to happen. And see, again, I've been on the internet since like 1997. I was 10 in 1997. I know what I'm talking about. My cousin and I and his friends, they were all at least a year older, starting circa 98, 99. We used to get on ICQ. And pretend to be older girls to see how many dudes would thirst after us, because we thought it was funny how quick, how fast dudes went to extreme thirst over a 10-year-old or an 11-year-old boy just because we said we were a girl. And so, like, when people tell me that they're a girl, on the internet, my first thought is, okay. And the whole trans movement didn't catch me by surprise at all. The whole inclusion of T in uh, the LGBTQ hierarchy, and that is a hierarchy. Understand that's a hierarchy. The Q plus is an afterthought, but including the T there was something that I wasn't surprised by, because I knew lots of dudes who figured out they were gay by pretending to be girls with dudes who were also pretending to be straight. I knew a lot of dudes who experimented with that in chat rooms, forums, online in the late 90s, early 2000s. So that it's still happening today is not a surprise to me on any level. That it's escalated and gotten predatory because of video, Omegle, Snapchat, etc., also didn't surprise me. When I was on Facebook in 2005, when it was still for university students only, my first thought was, somebody made an easy way for college girls to pick which boys they want to have sex with, and they made a convenient and apparently subtle, discreet's the word I'm looking for, apparently discreet way to ask for it. And my second thought was, now they're going to need a way for the photos they send to automatically delete themselves. Snapchat took a lot longer than it seems like it would have for somebody to. It's not that it's not that nobody knew the market or the niche was there. It's that they couldn't figure out how to do it. All right, we're almost done here. Now we're packing up the battery. Got to get my tripod in here next. And then my controller. Yep, it's gonna smell like tuna for a minute, and I'm not stoked about that. That was real dumb. Take a bottle of water to refill it. And that's that. Have I been holding your guys' attention enough that you don't want to interrupt me? Or have I so thoroughly disproved the idea that I might be a predator of any sort that now nobody knows what to say to me? Now I've just kind of ruined my own fountain by having very strong feelings about being a child who was left unsupervised around adults. Where's your kid? They used to run ads. They used to run ads when I was little. It's 6 o'clock. Where's your kid? Street lights are up. Where's Timmy? And the answer was dead. The answer was dead. But then feminists turned that around to try to end happy marriages. And they said, it's blank time. Where's your husband? And we forgot to think about the children. So many people are caught up in the drama of their unnecessary lives that they forget about the offspring. Because the offspring can happen by accident. The dedication to raising and caring for and providing for and husbanding a child, of parenting a child and providing for them so that they grow up to be a healthy, productive, useful, healthy, generous member of society. That's the work of a lifetime. It never ends. You don't get to retire from that. And we just follow in the example of the greatest generation, because we call them the greatest generation. So they must have set a good example, but they abandoned all of their children because they didn't have the time or the money yet to provide for them. But because of that bill, all those GI bills, the money would eventually come, and then they retired from parenting. They didn't do the late adult parenting part. So the boomers grew up without late adult parents, grew up without an example of what late adult parents should be like. And so they believed that you get the children through high school, you enroll them in university, you keep a half an eye on them while they're in university, but otherwise you just live a pornographic life. Nothing's stopping you. The only reason that you were temperate in your bedroom behavior before was because you had children living in the house. So now you don't have children living in the house. You can do all the debauchery you want. That's what boomers are actually like, because that's what their parents were like. And I can say with confidence that they are and were like that, as somebody who isn't them, because of research, but also because of a particular pattern that shows itself in scripture and social commentary every single time a nation, a people group, go from relative obscurity, relative meaning that someone was trying to keep them obscure. So think about, I don't know, think about Micah Parsons, right? Micah Parsons right now is in relative obscurity because the Cowboys organization doesn't want his personal brand to get bigger than the Cowboys brand. And I don't remember where I was going from there, because I gotta go. Not from the live. I just gotta walk up the hill. I gotta take my trash. I'd like to put on some music, and I don't know where my headphones are, so I should make sure that I know where my headphones are. I know where my cigarettes are. There's my headphones. I know where my headphones are. Yeah, that was intense. Thank you, thank the 7 of you for being here still, even though that was intense. This is really supposed to be about you guys. And then a child showed up and wanted to derail things. A child should not be in my chat, and that needs to be said for the future, and the future needs to know why. We were talking about tolerance, and tolerance and maturity can be described in the same ways. You get tolerance through experience, and maturity is, the graph of your experience. I know a lot of people in my generation assumed that turning 18 was going to make them mature in some way. And I still remember that girls used to use your maturity, grow up, be mature, right? As an insult. And that maturity was always relative to the girls, what they thought maturity was, but I don't know that that's still a thing. I don't ever hear it anymore. I don't ever hear girls tell boys to grow up. What I see now is girls capitulating to the fun of bad behavior and then getting guilty and stopping halfway through. So, blue ballsing immature behavior, but that only makes sense. That's why you know that idiom, blue balls, is because that's a thing that women are inclined to do. This is why marriages fall apart, is because guys want women to do things that they're not comfortable with, and then they say, well, if I don't like it, will you stop? And he goes, yeah, I'll stop. And then he doesn't want to stop, and he resents her for it. And so then at one point he doesn't stop, and trust is broken. Happens every time. Everybody I've ever talked to. Didn't happen in mine. That's not why she left me. But even if it is why she left me, it's not like I hadn't been talking to her about it since before we were even dating. That was basically all I talked about. Not asking her to do the thing, but not doing the standard monogamy thing. What a muggy day. It's wet and gray. That cloud is gonna burst at some point. Whew. And hot. The sun is direct. Today's I wouldn't say it's an ugly day. It's just not a good day to be out walking around in. I need to get to the Panera as quickly as possible because I didn't have enough water for this morning. It was cool getting to see all of you guys. And at this point, I just need to move on from that. So I don't see it anymore. Oh, is my stream broken? Is that what's going on? I can't see why that would be the case, but it won't let me. Huh. Well, here, how about I end this and then I go ahead and get my happy ass over to Panera and get sat down and we start over. How about that?